Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And I am back to talk to you today on day 8 of the 10-day sugar rehab. And we are talking about sweeteners. We've been talking about removing sugar. And I wanted to make sure that I help you create a plan for after the sugar rehab. And in order to create that plan, you got to know where to go from here. So, walaikum salam, Erkan Kandidi from Instagram. Assalamu alaikum. So I wanted to really dive in today into different sweeteners and what is a healthy sweetener. Walaikum salam, Rihal on Facebook. So get a little pen and paper if you can, right? I'm going to have some notes for you, or you can just save this video so you can come back to it. So we've been talking over the last week about removing sugars from our diet and added sweeteners and the effect that that makes on our body. But I know, let's be real, right? Sugar or sweetness naturally occurs in nature. So obviously, having something sweet is not going to kill us. Where that sweetness come from makes the big difference, okay? So I want you to complete the sugar rehab. We are on day 8 of 10. If you have not downloaded the sugar rehab, you can go to 10daysugarrehab.com, the number 10daysugarrehab.com, and you can download your sugar rehab guide. All right, so after we've removed sugar and we have broken our sugar addiction, right? And we no longer crave it or need it, but every so often you might want it. What are some of the options for sugar, and what is a healthy sugar? All right, so I have to give you a disclaimer first. This is gonna hit a few of my pet peeves. So I'm gonna try not to veer off track. If you are just joining me, my name is Mubaraka Ibrahim. I'm a health and happiness coach, and if you believe that physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is intertwined, and the weakness of one weakens them all, and the strengthening of one strengthens them all, then welcome. You have found your tribe. We are your people, all right? Because here on the Fit Muslimah platform, we talk about food, faith, and fitness, and how they live in an intersection. All right. So Rihal has a question. What are the causes of weight loss plateau and how to break a weight loss plateau? Unfortunately, I cannot answer that because that is not one answer. That depends on what you're doing, how long you've been doing it, and what your current health and fitness state is. So unfortunately, that is not a question that I will be able to answer today. But what we are going to talk about is what are healthy sugars. Walaikum salam, Spice Coach on Instagram from Kuwait. I love the internet because it just makes the world small, okay? All right, so when it comes to sweeteners, what is considered a healthy sweeteners? And I'm gonna put healthy in quotations. I use healthy in quotations because I have the strong belief that there's really no such thing as anything that is universally healthy. Healthy is a catch-all phrase. What is healthy for one person is not healthy for someone else, right? So dairy in general can be a very healthy food, but I know people who are lactose intolerant. I know people who are actually allergic to dairy, like anaphylactic allergic to dairy. That also applies to things like wheat or even honey, right? So I get this argument all the time. Oh, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, honey was his favorite food. How could you tell people not to eat honey? I'm not telling everyone not to eat honey. I'm saying that if you are overweight, if you have any type of metabolic syndrome, and if you have diabetes or insulin resistance, you should not be eating honey, right? Because it's really important that we eat in a way that supports our health and wellness. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't have diabetes. And we also have many examples of when he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, encouraged people to eat in a way that will heal them, that will make them better. There are examples of him being with the companions and they were sick and he said, eat this and don't eat that, right? It's literally a part of the example of the sunnah. All right, so putting that out and I'm putting it to the side. Putting it to the side. And anybody who come at me about the stop eating honey if you have insulin resistance, I'm sending them this video. All right. So what are the types of sweeteners that we should eat? First, let's talk a little bit about how we need to limit the amount of sweeteners that we eat. We talked about yesterday, and I'm going to repeat and it's what we have to go with right now, right? The FDA says that the average woman should have no more than 24 grams of added sweetener a day, right? The average American woman eats 5 times that much every single day. So we have to significantly reduce the amount of sweeteners. The World Health Organization actually recommends half of that. So no more than 5% of your calories coming, which puts you at about 12 grams of added sugar a day. That will make the average American woman eating 10 times the amount of what is considered healthy. So I have a list of sweeteners, and I'm going to kind of try to break them down in very general form for you as to what is considered my air quotes, healthy sweetener. So when I talk about healthy sweeteners for the purpose of this platform, you know that I'm really, really focused on reducing and reversing diabetes and insulin resistance. And so I am talking in the respect or with the sub thought of we're trying to control insulin, we're trying to control inflammation, right? This is the perspective in which I'm coming from. So let's talk about natural sugars first, right? Honey, maple syrup, these are like unprocessed things. You can go out to a beehive and you can scoop up some honey, completely unprocessed, unchanged by the hands of man. You can tap a tree, you can get some maple syrup, you can get some sap, you can boil it to maple syrup. That's almost as natural as you can get, right? They have benefits in terms of the things that come inside of them, that comes along with the sweetener. So those things are vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, nutrients, right? But the problem is that we literally eat too much, right? When you look at the serving size of honey, it's going to tell you how many carbs, proteins, vitamins is in a teaspoon. The average person uses a tablespoon of honey in their tea, right? A tablespoon is 4 teaspoons. So if you're looking at the nutritional value of that honey, you literally need to multiply it by 4 or only use a teaspoon, right? If you have insulin resistance in the form of PCOS, in the form of your doctor told you that you are pre-diabetic and you need to now begin to watch what you eat and how you move so that you can avoid full-fledged type 2 diabetes, or let me go to the next thing, or if you are actually diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, you should avoid eating honey or maple syrup, because it is very high on the glycemic index, which means it raises your blood glucose really, really high. And if you have any form of insulin resistance, it's not just the fact that it raises your blood glucose. Insulin resistance is not about the raise, it's about the lower, right? So this is also a misconception about insulin resistance. I don't have insulin resistance, but if I eat honey, my blood glucose is going to raise. Anybody that's a human being, if they eat honey, their blood glucose is going to go up. The difference between a person that doesn't have insulin resistance and a person that does is that your insulin do not come down in a healthy amount of time, right? 2 hours later, you still have high insulin. 3 hours later, you still have high insulin levels, right? So that is what makes insulin. Think about insulin resistance is about the resistance of your blood sugars coming down. That's insulin resistance. It's resisting coming down. It stays up high far too long. And the longer your insulin is raised, then the more damage it is doing in your body. Going up. So it's almost like stress, right? The stress response is a natural response for our body. Everybody is going to experience stress in their life. It may go up, but the healthy person who can manage stress well, you have a stressful event and then you're able to come back down. The problem is when stress is up and it's continuously up. The same thing is about blood sugar. When it's up and it's continuously up. So that is what we consider like the natural sugars. All right. So what are some of the alternatives to honey if you have insulin resistance and you really want to, I don't know, have a little sweetness in your coffee or in your tea, right? So here are some, what y'all want first, the goods or the bads? Y'all tell me in the comments. Y'all want me to tell y'all about all of the things you shouldn't have that got some side effects? Or do you want me to tell you about all the things you can first? All right. What do you want first? The good news or the bad news? That's what you got to tell me. Good news or the bad news? So when we talk about what type of sweeteners, Zahida on Facebook, she posted first. She said she wants the bad news first and end with the good. Okay, bad news. She posted first, so she gets it, right? So when we talk about sweeteners, and again, I want to remind you that I'm talking about the level of insulin, because remember, a high insulin level, right? High blood glucose and high insulin, it's not just about creating diabetes, right? We know that it's associated to heart disease. We know people with chronically high insulin levels have a harder time with joint pain, arthritis. Even dementia is now considered type 3 diabetes, directly related to chronically high insulin levels. So this is not just about diabetes, which is why I focus on it. I think that it is one part that we can focus on, that we can make a great impact on our health. When people started becoming conscious of the effects of sugar, of course, manufacturers are going to start coming up with all type of things that are supposed to be sugar substitutes. So we have really common ones that you're going to see in the store: sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, right? You see it in the little sweet and low packages. You'll see it put in so many things. These are kind of like the first 3 sugar substitutes that came along that was approved by the FDA. So here's the problem with those particular substitutes in themselves, is that technically they are carb-free and they are calorie-free. However, research shows that they actually raise blood glucose. So if you have insulin resistance, you need to turn over all of the stuff to say sugar-free, turn it around, look at the back, and you want to make sure that these sweeteners are not included, because technically they're sugar-free, but also technically they're still raising your blood sugar. So sucralose, aspartame, and saccharin. In addition, there has been lots of research around how aspartame in particular disrupts the gut microbiome. And we talked a little bit yesterday about how important it is for us to have a healthy gut, because that's 70% of our immune system, right? And we know that our immune system staying strong is super important, particularly in these times. When it comes to things like diet soda, right, you're going to find those 3 sweeteners in it, but you're also going to find something that is called ACE, right? So it's asulfame potassium. Make sure I'm pronouncing it right, right? And it's used in diet sodas because it is 200 times sweeter than sugar. But you have the same issue with ACE, is that it is still affecting your blood sugar. It is still disrupting the microbiome of your gut, right? So it is really not, these are not healthy sugar substitutes. These are the things that you want to stay away from, all right? So sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, and ACE, you want to stay away from those. Those are the, I don't want to say really bad. Those are the things that you should avoid as much as possible. Eliminate. If I say eliminate, that means like You got to be dying of thirst in the desert to have a soda, right? A diet soda, dying of the thirst in the desert, right? So those are those. There are sugar alcohols. Disclaimer: alcohol is not like alcohol, haram alcohol. We're not talking about that kind of alcohol. It's called a sugar alcohol because of the chemical structure of the substance. It's not alcohol because it gets you drunk. Just want to put that out there. So there are sugar alcohols, and they are sugar substitutes, but some research actually shows that they too raise your blood sugar. And the side effect of them is they actually give you sort of a laxative effect. They tend to cause many people digestive disturbance. So that's xylitol, sorbitol, mannitol, and isomalt. Those are 4 sugar alcohols that, again, you will find in sugar-free items that they are technically sugar-free, but they will cause you some digestive disturbances. So those are kind of like, you really want to avoid those unless you want to have gas all day or, be near a bathroom. I'm just saying, right? So those are also sugar alcohols. There is a 5th sugar alcohol that I did not include in this section because it actually has less of a side effect, right? And that is erythritol. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol. It has been shown that it does not raise blood sugar the way that the other alcohols that I mentioned, and it has less of a digestive disturbance inside of your system. So that is it's on the edge. It's on the edge. It's okay, but you don't want to have a lot of it. You don't want to have a lot of it. You will find your erythritol in, what is it called? Truvia, right? So the company Swerve, they made stevia. They have the stevia substitute, but then they also have something that's called Truvia, where they mix stevia and erythritol together, right? So that's going to decrease the amount of erythritol, and it's going to decrease also the chances of you having those side effects, all right? Now, those are the eliminate and avoid items. So where can you get a little bit of sweetness from your tea? And I'm saying a little bit of sweetness because I really think that it's important that the disclaimer is I am not saying go bake a sugar-free cinnamon bun with these things, right? Too much of anything is not a good thing, all right? But here are some sweeteners. For our purposes, again, we're looking at it from a lens of what are some things that is not going to raise our blood glucose, right? That is going to allow us to maintain a steady insulin level throughout the day, as well as it is not going to cause any digestive disturbances and may even be beneficial for our digestive health. So, monk fruit, right? Monk fruit comes from the monk fruit. It is actually, the fruit is actually, the juice from the fruit is drained out of it and then it's crystallized, right? So monk fruit, and you can find monk fruit now in many different versions. Like I have monk fruit in powdered sugar form, brown sugar that I use for my coffee in the morning, white sugar if I want to use it for anything else, right? It comes in all different versions. So monk fruit. Stevia, another natural sweetener that comes from the stevia plant, right? You can even grow stevia. The leaf itself is actually sweet even before they turn it into a crystallized sugar substance. So stevia, monk fruit and stevia. Why are they considered healthier? Because they do not raise blood sugar. There is another sweetener that's called inulin, I-N-U-L-I-N, inulin, and that is a third sweetener that does not raise your blood sugar the way that the other ones do. And we have, okay, so those are kind of like I think probably the most common ones that you're going to find inside of the store, right? Then there's one more that I wanted to talk about, and it's called allulose, right? So allulose is a newcomer on the scene, right? And the FDA, for all, I don't know if you want to take this with a grain of salt, because FDA in America don't really got that good of a track record. We use them because it's all we got. But they have, so allulose is a sweetener, and it is low carb. It has it's no sugar. It has been shown that it barely raises your blood glucose. It has been approved in the United States, and the FDA in 2019 has even gone to the length of saying that they don't even have to include it in added sugars inside of our foods. More research needs to be done. It has not been approved in the UK or Canada yet. So you can do what you will with that information. All right. So sometimes keeping it simple is the best thing to do. So those are some alternatives that you can have if you want to have added sweeteners. I like to be a realist. Does this mean that anytime you want cake or cookie, or you have a party or birthday or celebration, you should be using these things to make all of your desserts with? No, that does not mean that. This means on a daily basis, if you're going to have a little bit of sweetness, it is really good that you use just things that are going to give you the taste that you want in your tea or coffee, but it is not going to be detrimental to your health. All right. So that was the purpose. I do not advocate that you overconsume these things, because even with these things, that sweetness, remember that sugar addiction is a chemical addiction in the brain. It is a physiological addiction in your nervous system in your body, but it's also a psychological addiction. And so I don't want you to replace your sugar, cane sugar, right, with all of these sugar substitutes, and you still can have that sugar addiction. All right. So I did see a couple of comments about what about this sweetener and that sweetener. There are so many different sweeteners that I could talk about, but I do not have that much time to spend talking about coconut sugar and birch sugar and this sugar and that sugar. So I'm going to leave it there with the most common sugars that we see inside of our food and drink. And I hope you are doing well and you are rocking this 10-day challenge. We have 2 more days. And when you are done with this 10-day challenge, I want you inside of the 40-day burn belly fat challenge, right? If you do the 10-day challenge, you got to do the 40-day burn belly fat challenge, particularly because we are a little over 40 days away from Ramadan. Rah! The burn belly fat challenge actually starts on the 21st, and it ends the first day of Ramadan. So you will go into Ramadan with a clear health and fitness plan, and your whole body will be attuned. So when Ramadan starts, inshallah, you will not suffer many of the physical adjustments to fasting, and you can focus all of your energy on your spiritual wellness during Ramadan. So hope to see you inside of the challenge, and I'll also see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is it the 9th day? I think it is. Well, I think it might be the 9th day of the challenge. Hope you're doing great, and you are sweet enough, so you don't need the sugars. All right. Assalamu alaikum.